In this video, we're going to continue to talk about pivot tables, and we're going to focus here on filters and slicers, which are ways to narrow down what data you want to show on your pivot table and get a little bit more specific. So here we got deal size. We talked about that in a previous video. In this original data source, we had each of the different deals and these different sales of these vehicles had different sizes of the deal, and that was sort of broken out in the original data into medium, small, and large. So we can add that to the filter section, and we have it right up here. It's automatically going to select all, and we can select, oh, I want large deals only, and that's going to filter by large deals only. Or I can go up here and select multi-select, and then I can say I want medium and large deals. There you go, we got medium and large deals. And you'll notice when I added this filter, it created a little row up here with your filter. You can keep adding filters and they'll keep appearing up there. So if I added, let's say I wanted to filter by months. I only wanted to look at deals that happen in December. So I got my month ID here, I put this up here, you can see it moved it up. And I can go up here and click on 12 for December. And there you go, these are deals that are only happening in December. But as you can imagine, as you keep adding them, it's eventually going to run into the top of whatever's above, and it might overwrite stuff as well. So what you want to keep an eye out for, just to show you an example, if I were to get rid of these two, and then remove all this space, you'll see that when I add this deal size filter back, it will move the whole pivot table down. Now, in many cases that might be fine, but if you have any work that's referring to the pivot table, maybe you have formulas around here or other such situations, that might be super annoying because your formulas will be wrong and everything will be messed up. So always leave enough room above your pivot table. If you want to add more of these filters, just insert some more rows, make sure you got some room for that to work out. Now, filters like this are very, very useful while you're working on pivot tables and working on data, but the only challenge with them is that they're not very attractive, and sometimes they're not super user-friendly. Like for instance, if I wanted to do that thing where I was looking at a particular quarter, let's say, I have quarters here, and I say, okay, I got quarters, and I want to look at fourth quarter. I have a 4, but if I have multi-selection, I have 3 and 4. But really, I want to look at third and fourth quarter of a specific year, let's say, and not just any third or fourth quarter. So this is not even that helpful. I guess I could select the year 2 and go to year and filter out certain years. But you can see that this is multi-select. It's not really attractive looking. You can't really see what's going on unless you click on these little buttons. It's not the best way to go. So for when you're working on a table, this is maybe a great way to go. It gives you a little bit more manual control. But if you wanted to show this to a client and have them interact with the data, a better option might be slicers, they're called. So I'm going to remove these. I'm going to clear them first. And remove. Go up here. Clear this guy. Sometimes the filter stays, but it's actually not applied. So like for instance, this has a filter on it, but actually the deal size filter is not active. So if I add it back, it will say large and medium. But if I get rid of it, it's gone, but it's remembering the filter, which could be a feature if I wanted to add that back, but I have to remember it's doing that. So Excel's trying to be smart here, but if you don't realize it's doing that, you could actually make a terrible mistake. So keep that in mind. If you want to clear them, you got to remember to clear them. Now I see I don't have any filter icons. I got this one here. I'm going to get rid of that. Clear filter. There you go. Everything is cleared. Now, and that was from something I did earlier. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here into Analyze, and I'm going to add a slicer. And it gives me a suite of options. Basically, these are all of our different fields. I'm going to select deal size, which is what we were looking at earlier. And now I got this cool little gizmo that basically will let me just click around on whatever I need. So if I need large deals or medium deals or small deals, I can instantly access them and see exactly what it's doing. If I click here, I can make them multi-select. So if I want to do what I did before and do large and small deals, I can unselect small, and there you go. I got my large and my small deals together only in my pivot table. You can also go in here and right click and go to slicer settings, and you can set some more settings in here. For instance, you can control how the slicer appears, what it looks like. You can also control the order of the items and other things like that. So you have a lot more control. This is a much more user-friendly thing. Of course, if you have a lot of filters, this could be very hectic, having a lot of different slicers running around, but certainly for showing a client, this is the more polished approach. The other thing you can do, which is a very interesting feature, is the insert timeline slicer. Now you'll notice when I do this, it only selects order date, and that's because order date is the only range in my original table that is formatted like a date. Now if you see nothing here, and you wanted to use this time slicer, you might, and you do have a date range, you might not have it formatted like a real date. So the way you can tell is you go back here and you see you got your date here. If I copy this and I were to paste it as a value some place, and it shows you some number like that, this is correct. You can just tell because it's counting the number of days up from a certain date, and that is a correctly formatted date. But if it just shows you a bunch of text, it may not be the same. We actually talked about that in a previous video. But just remember, it needs to be formatted like a date that Excel will recognize. So if I go here and I do this again, you'll see it only found the only one that's formatted correctly, which is order date. I hit OK. And now I have this very interesting widget that lets me control. Let's say I only want to look at August in 2017. Well, here's August in 2017. What do I want these months? All right, you got them. Whatever you want. I can go up here and make this quarters. Let's say I wanted, fourth quarter through third quarter. I got it. It's a really cool feature, really user-friendly feature. You can even make this as granular as days. Then it gets a little bit wonkier and difficult to use, but it's still quite interesting and just a really great feature built into Excel that makes filtering a much more user-friendly thing. If you had done the same thing and you would put order date, order date, if you had put it up here in filters, it would be such a really not great experience trying to filter these down. Rather, using this slicer though, this timeline thing, it's a much more user-friendly experience, even if you weren't showing this to a client. Okay, great. So that just shows you, essentially 3 great ways to filter your data set using pivot tables. The last thing I just wanted to mention real quick is that if you are noticing these little arrows and this little thing here, and you don't want to show that to a client, you actually have a lot of control over that in the settings for the pivot table. So the pivot table options, when you right click on it, you'll see there's something called display. And there's a few interesting settings that I recommend playing around with in here and experimenting with, but a few I want to draw your attention to is you can remove these expand and collapse buttons. And when I do that, hit OK, you'll see, keep your eye on this little negative sign over here. When I do that, that will vanish. And that will mean that users won't be able to just click and expand or contract those, which might be what you want in a formatted pivot that you're presenting to a client and having them interact with. Let me go back in there and show you another option. If I go to pivot table options, display tab, another option, you can kind of remove these ugly looking arrows here. So you can go here and it says display field captions and filter dropdowns, get rid of that. And boom, they're gone. That's a much cleaner looking pivot table right away. A little less user-friendly for a power user who's trying to make modifications to the pivot, but if you're trying to show the pivot off to someone or use it in some form like that, like a dashboard, this makes a much cleaner result, gives you much more control over its appearance. Okay, thank you so much for joining us for this video. If you like the video, please like it and share it with someone. Maybe subscribe to the channel, and definitely check out all the other videos we have on this channel about learning Excel and just becoming better at this really amazing tool.